Hi folks, so this week we're going to do another behavioural experiment or exposure. This time seeing what happens when I say hi to everybody when I walk past them on a walk. This is it's good practice in general because it involves deliberately being friendly and warm and engaging with people, because that's the opposite of that protective social anxiety disengagement. So that alone is very good practice. It's why I have people do this sometimes. This week we're also going to focus on really two big questions when we do it, which is true really of all behavioral experiments or exposures. The first one is, does the feared event actually happen? Does it go wrong? We will, if we're being anxious, we'll commonly overestimate the likelihood that it'll go wrong. So we'll test that out. And then second, if it does go wrong, how bad is it? Is it a catastrophe? Or is it something that I can handle? Okay, this is me starting my walk. First person coming up, I say hi to her. She actually looks and smiles and says hi to me too. I could tell I surprised her. She was stuck in her head, I think. Okay, this is the second person I saw.
Afternoon.
She had a big smile and said hi. She's really nice. There's a couple of older people here. Good smile, very nice. This guy, watch what happens here.
Afternoon.
A big grimace. I said hi to him, he looked at me and gave me a big grimace. There's a couple out exercising.
Hey.
This guy gives me a very Australian g'day as he goes past. Someone else exercising. I say hi to her and she does not look, doesn't say anything. A person with a dog, she's very friendly in response. There is a trend for people with dogs I've noticed to be very friendly.
Afternoon.
She's very nice too. Okay. Second last person here does not respond, doesn't say hi back. And then a friendly person with a dog. Okay, so as you could see, it's kind of a mixed bag of friendliness. Overall, compared to just last time walking past people and smiling, more people responded and reciprocated. So 7 people out of the 10 smiled and said hi. So it's a pretty good response rate. So in general, actually engaging and saying hi, people responded better. A couple of reasons why. I think probably most likely it's snapping people out of whatever their internal focus is, and they are sort of forced to acknowledge that I'm a person that they're walking past. And when that happens, most people are nice and polite, so that makes them likely to respond in an appropriate kind of friendly way. So I think that's really why sort of the breaking people out and the fact that most people are nice and polite is probably why that happened. I know it's very easy to, I'm sure some of you are thinking this, it's very easy to mind read and think, oh, well, yeah, sure, they smiled and said hi, but internally they were probably thinking, what's this guy doing? Or this is weird or something. Maybe, but unfortunately that's mind reading and we cannot count mind reading. It's not admissible because one, when we do mind read, we skew way negative in a way that's unrealistic. We're far more likely to imagine negative thoughts than positive thoughts. And the second reason is that it's impossible and we can't do it. So no mind reading, all we can go on is the evidence. And the evidence is, 70% of people smiled and said hi. There were 30% who didn't. So 30% of people ignored me or maybe didn't hear me or grimaced at me. Okay, so when we're looking at that first belief, the overestimating. So a tendency for our anxious brain to overestimate the likelihood that it'll go wrong. It went wrong 30% of the time. So it means 70% of the time, people were nice, responded well. Good, so more often than not. When it did go wrong, that takes us to that second way of thinking with targeting. In some ways, this is more important, which is the catastrophizing. When it does go wrong, how bad is it and can I handle it? So let's look at this situation. Two people ignored me or didn't respond, didn't give any engagement or reciprocation. How bad was that? I mean, fine, like nothing happened. Sort of the consequences were that nothing happened and I kept walking and they kept walking. Like it wasn't actively negative. I didn't stop and like make some face at me or say something negative or say they were disgusted or like, why are you talking to me? Really, it was just a lack of response. I don't know why, and I can't mind read why. There was just no response. So the actual consequences were I said hi, I had no response, and we both kept walking. So really, no real life consequences. That one guy looked at me and grimaced. No idea what to make of that. And what were the consequences? Nothing. We just kept walking. And in all these cases, I just kept walking and said hi to the next person. And they tended to respond better. So, no real consequences. A lot of times the fear is the emotional consequences. So, there weren't any for me in this case. So what I've found from doing these kind of experiments in the past is if you were to do just one, so let's say you just went and said hi to one person and you got the grimace guy or like one of these people who just didn't look at me, that would probably have more of an emotional impact because it's the only example. And it's easier to then say, oh, that must mean this about me or that about other people, or, you know, this is how everyone will always respond to me. These are attributions. That's why it's good to have a plan and you stick to the plan no matter what happens. Because in this case, I did the entire walk. So when these things happened, I had already interacted with people and I'd already gotten some pleasant responses. So in the context, having these three sort of like neutrally negative responses didn't have any emotional impact because I'd already had positive responses. And on the whole, a positive response makes up for a lot of negative responses. One good connection is emotionally going to make up for a whole lot of lack of connections. And the other piece of it is basically the longer you do an exposure for, so the more interactions you have, just over time your anxiety comes down and your emotional response comes down and your sort of warmth and natural friendliness escalate. Like I see this with myself and with all my clients I do this stuff with. So the actual consequences, not much happened and I felt pretty fine, and honestly by the end of it all I was very proud of myself for having engaged and tried to connect with people, and I felt good for some of the good responses that I had, and by the end of it I was feeling pretty friendly, pretty good, and it was pretty easy to then go socialize afterwards. Okay, hope this was helpful. Thanks, bye-bye.